we're all cooped up right now, and like everybody else, I've been watching a ton of movies and TV to pass the time. As you know, I really like Star Trek, and believe it or not, I actually hadn't seen the original films before. So throughout this whole ordeal, I've seen Motion Picture, I've seen Wrath of Khan, I've seen Search for Spock. Voyage Home's actually next on my list. I have no interest in anything after that. And years ago, I did see the Abrams films. Quickly talking about that, I think they're fine as films, but you can't top the original cast, at least not for me. And they feel more action-oriented than Star Trek-oriented. I know, different universe, different interpretation, all great, but I'm a purist. I like the original cast so much. And yes, been getting more into Next Gen. I'm checking that out too. But I wanted to give general thoughts as to Motion Picture, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock. As for Motion Picture, everybody called it the slow motion picture, and yes, it is. It's really slow moving. Everyone talks about how needless a lot of the establishing shots are, that they wanted to show off their new effects, and honestly, the warp effect still looks really, really good, and there are some effects of the establishing shots do look really, really nice, and the atmosphere is quite nice, but it is slow. At least the first 2/3 of it, though. It does feel more like an extended episode. It does feel very padded. But the thing about the motion picture is, of the films, it has the deepest ideas and the most philosophical thought. I like the last third of it. What it's building up to is very, very interesting. And spoilers, obviously. But again, if you're watching this, you're probably into Star Trek and you've probably seen this already. But essentially, they're looking for V'ger, which is Voyager, and it's essentially an entity. It's looking for more knowledge. It has plateaued in where it is now, and it wants to improve, it wants to expand, it wants more knowledge, and I think that was a really interesting idea. Of the 3 films, I think the motion picture doesn't get enough credit because it goes the deepest into philosophy, into thought, into some of the intellectualism that Star Trek was known for, and I think it deserves more appreciation for that. It's the last third of it. It takes a long time to build up to it, but when it gets there, it's very, very interesting. And of course, I did not know the twist of V'ger being Voyager, and yes, even knowing that there's a series called Star Trek Voyager, I could not connect the dots. But the twist was still impressive, and it was still a great experience. Again, I really found myself enjoying that last third. I really liked what it was building up to. It did feel a lot like some of the most thought-provoking episodes of Star Trek. And that's a part of the show that's honestly one of the most appealing things to me about the show. What it's saying about humanity and what it's saying when it goes into a topic like knowledge, it tends to dissect it very much like a philosopher or a psychologist, and I like that angle. The costumes in that movie are horrible. Oh my god. I think everybody's made fun of it, but good god, that is a beige movie. That is so colorless. That's one of my least favorite things about it, just the costume design. They look like they're wearing Band-Aids. They look like they're human Band-Aids. I think they have a couple nice costumes in it. Spock has these really nice black robes when he appears on the Enterprise that are really, really cool. They have this really nice embroidery, and it looks very alien, but still classy. It's a really nice costume. Kirk is a really nice, he gets a very nice bluish silver uniform, and that's short-sleeved. It has a belt. I thought, okay, that's a really interesting update for a character later in their career. Those two I thought were nice costumes. Everything else is horrible. The costumes do improve in Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, though. They got these really nice red uniforms. But yeah, motion picture. Slow-moving. I do find it underappreciated in many ways. It does feel like an extended episode, but in many ways, it takes the most risks intellectually, and it goes the deepest. Explores ideas in a way that later films don't. At least not Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock. Wrath of Khan, of course, hands down, is the best of these films. It's the most complete piece. It's very interesting. Oh my god, Khan's back! Ricardo Montalban, who is fantastic, really delivers a great performance. And definitely the most complete film. It's very action oriented. It's just a good film. It's really good. It's complete from beginning to end. And I watched Wrath of Khan right after the motion picture. I marathoned those two with a friend weeks and weeks ago, but I remembered very clearly this was right before the quarantine happened, so that it was my last hurrah, watching Wrath of Khan before the stay-at-home orders. And the improvements were very, very noticeable. It was a much more complete film. It had big stakes. It had a really cool villain. Khan is definitely one of the most memorable villains in Star Trek, and boy, what a great performance. Again, the design was really cool, too. You definitely believe he'd been spending time on this planet. And knowing a little bit about the plot of Wrath of Khan, when I saw the original episode, Space Seed, and I thought when Kirk and crew choose to abandon Khan on this planet, I thought, stupid decision! No! Send him to jail! No! Do not give him this planet! I thought it was a dumb decision at the conclusion of that episode. But granted, it gave us a really good film. Thought, why are they being needlessly lenient on this genetically engineered dictator? But again, really, really cool villain, really cool character dynamics, great costumes, much improved costumes. The red uniforms are very, very nice and very flattering on the crew. It adds way more color than the motion picture did, and it looks a lot less dated. So there's that. Yeah. Has the famous Khan, which was a very poor imitation right there. But still, it was a great film. I definitely agree with most fans on this. I'm pretty sure my opinions are going to align with most of the fan base on this. At least based on what I've seen fans talk about and the general consensus I get. But it was a noticeable step up in many, many ways from motion picture. It still feels more like an action flick. It doesn't go as deep into characters or philosophy. Well, okay, it's got some really nice character moments, and you do see Kirk a little later in his career, you see the crew a little later in their careers, but they're still a team. They're still the Enterprise. Then, of course, Search for Spock. Again, it's a really cool progression from the original show through the movies. You do get to see characters face different problems. One thing I do like about the movies is that they do step it up from the show. They know that the cast was aging, so they give them problems that are relevant to where they are in their careers and where they are at their age. It's a nice progression. It's a nice step up from the show. It definitely grows with the characters in many, many ways. And of course, I don't think I was okay for the end of Wrath of Khan when Spock sacrificed himself. It is still a really touching scene, but I did know it was coming. That's an element of the movies I knew was coming. Unlike the ending of the motion picture, which is a lot less talked about. I think because more people do talk about Wrath of Khan so Spock sacrificing himself and and Spock dying was not a surprise to me, but it is still such a gut-wrenching moment. Yeah, the acting is so impressive from Shatner, from Nimoy, just all around, probably some of the strongest character acting from those two in the whole franchise. And it's such a big moment too, and it's really well built up. So you feel and plus you have the whole next movie to bring Spock back. I will get to that one in a few minutes. It's really builds on top of it very, very well. So what's nice is that while the motion picture, it was the first movie, it did have more of an experimentation going on, but you definitely get the sense that the films do progress and they do get better, at least, up to a point. I know 4 is good. Again, don't really know what the fan base thinks about 5 and up. Okay, I know 5 is supposed to be terrible, but I don't even know if 5 is supposed to be so bad it's good or if it's just unpleasant terrible, but I'll trust you guys to leave me comments about that, at least the more dedicated people. At least those of you who like to overthink. Okay, Search for Spock. Great follow-up. I think for character moments, I think Search for Spock in the movies is the richest. In terms of character moments, you get the dynamic of Kirk and Spock really well. I love, it's a heist movie in some ways because the crew, they steal the Enterprise to go return Spock's Katra to Vulcan, which is his essence, his soul, essentially. I had this conversation with a friend of mine when watching the series about what Star Trek is saying about the existence of a soul, and pretty much Search for Spock confirms that souls are a thing, at least for Vulcans, but souls are a thing. It's a very straightforward plot, and it gives us some very good character moments. Again, I think of the three, this one has the characters being themselves the most. You get more focus on Kirk and Spock's character dynamic, McCoy to a lesser extent, but you get the camaraderie of the Enterprise, and that's another thing I really, really like about Star Trek, the camaraderie of the characters, and I think Search for Spock does that the best. Even if Wrath of Khan is the best film, I think the stuff that's good about the other two that I've seen so far are some of the best. So, Motion Pictures has the best philosophy, the most thought-provoking ideas. Wrath of Khan is the best complete piece, and Search for Spock is the most interesting among the character dynamics. Also, Sulu and Uhura get to do a little more, which is fantastic. Yeah, Sulu gets a badass scene, Uhura gets to do something, and I even find in the movies that the supporting cast is criminally underused, and I like them a lot. Judging by fan reactions, a lot of people don't like Search for Spock nearly as much because a lot more people like Wrath of Khan or Voyage Home. But I thought Search for Spock was great. I enjoyed it very much. Yeah, it's got its silly moments, but so does Star Trek as a series, as a franchise. And I think it's a really interesting focus on Spock's character. It's a great continuation of the story. It's got a cool villain. Hey, you got some very fun villains. You got Klingons. Christopher Lloyd's in it. Isn't that great? And John Larroquette. I didn't recognize them, but they're fun. And again, I like the look of this film. I like the makeup. I like the designs. I like the effects. The effects, again, part of the fun of Star Trek. Another thing I like about it, I appreciate the cheesiness and the hokiness of it. For me, what I like so much about it that I've talked about in other videos where I'm just spitballing and giving you my thoughts, I like that it's a good mix of smart and stupid. Because you can appreciate it on an intellectual level, but you can just be entertained at the same time. I like that you can take it too seriously or you cannot take it seriously at all, and both are completely acceptable. That's brilliant. It's great. I love it. You can turn your brain off, you can turn your brain on. So Search for Spock, again, and they introduced some new characters that I find interesting. Again, in Wrath of Khan they have Lieutenant Saavik, who is a new cadet. She's played by Kirstie Alley in Wrath of Khan, different actress in Search for Spock, and I thought she was a good addition. I liked the character. I found her interesting. I like that she had to learn, and she was trying to figure out, okay, well, what are Kirk's decisions? What are his choices? What would my choices be? And you can see that as she goes through, she has to make a bunch of different tough choices that older cast members, older characters have had to make. But the stakes are very, very different. And you get Kirk's family, David Marcus, you don't really get a ton of scenes with those two together. Could have been interesting to go into. But they have enough. I like that they keep the focus where it should be. I like that Search for Spock, and even Wrath of Khan, they have a goal, and everything that they're doing is an advancement of that goal. Very easy to follow, and it builds on top of it. Continues the story, it raises the stakes, they go through the mission, and they're dealing with the Genesis planet and trying to understand what it is, what it does, and why the Klingons think it's a super weapon, why they want it so badly. All interesting. They have interesting problems. It's great space exploration. It's those three movies, I think, all bring something very, very unique and very different to the table. And whether you like one, not the other, most people agree Wrath of Khan's the best. I do agree with that, but I find that the stuff that I like about Motion Picture and Search for Spock, I really, really like. So I'd be curious as to what other people have to say. If you've come to the end of my ramblings and have more to say, great. Comments, cool. I will make another video talking about The Voyage Home when I get to it, because that is next on my Star Trek list. And if I have to watch 5, 6, anything beyond, just please, if I have to watch some of the lesser movies, just, can they at least be entertainingly bad? Or at least send me some funny reviews of them. And yes, I've seen Nostalgia Critics reviews. They're great. They're funny. I don't think everything is... I've taken different things away from the films than he did, but as you've seen here, but I find those reviews funny. Yeah. Star Trek movies, great way to pass the time. Great for thinking, great for enjoying, great entertainment, great for overthinking, underthinking. It's Star Trek. It's just gonna keep going, and I love it for that.